every single time I seen Phil skate, you just knew that like he was very talented. He wasn't gonna outdo you in a session just to outdo you, but he naturally could. To know that he fucking grinded the top bar, like the dude is just one step beyond at all times. Like, to be able to fucking grind the bar, you gotta be able to snap it. And 5-0, like, he's just that much better. He's just that much better than you.
One of the best skaters ever.
As good as anyone on everything.
Now I feel the time is right. Love will flow like wine tonight. Give your love and it will come to you. Yeah. If you feel that you and me could escape and hold the key to a paradise that's true and free. Yeah. Steal away. Steal away. Steal away.
He's like Hosoi and the Gons in one dude, okay?
You gotta steal it. Come on, baby. Now I'm at your honesty. You are here and I am free. Broken chains are falling all around. Yeah. With my finger at the rules. Broken chains and broken rules. Let it be rebellion rules tonight. Yeah. Steal away.
He's a master. He was the best.
If there's anything to say is do your homework on Phil Shao. He's a rad skater.
I met Phil, I believe, 1988. Mostly at his ramp, and then he cut it down. He was amazing. He was super smooth. He was good and consistent.
There was that quarter-page ad in Thrasher for Confusion skateboards, which I knew was local.
What was Confusion?
Confusion started back in '84, primarily in Oakland.
Lopes rode for him, had a board, and then Phil got on with him.
I walk into this warehouse, and there's this kid popping off the lip of the vert ramp like a deer, and his name was Phil Shao, and we just synced up and started doing boards for Phil.
Yeah, he was ripping. He's like a little mini Christian Asord. Never seen him again until Shugi.
Phil fit right in. He just wanted to be one of the guys, and he was.
And I think he even was doing airs off the vert ramp into the spine ramp, and not just coming off the side of the vert ramp, like out. It was fucking gnarly.
You know, we're skaters, so you're like, who's cool and who's not cool? And I was like, I don't know what to make of this dude, but he's got long hair. It's like one strike against him. And then I think I had to skate against him in an AM final. But I remember being like, the fucking concussion dude's gonna beat me. And he did.
All Northern California was at the San Jose qualifiers, so anybody that ripped vert at that time, they got smoked by Phil. That's awesome.
You know, Phil edged out all the locals here and got the invite, and so it was pretty common. Guys going on a trip, I would juice their package.
That's just a way of life.
You hustle some product on the road, and bon voyage.
I was supposed to meet Phil when you guys went to Atlanta for the 1991 NSA finals. I was there for the mini ramp, just covered in knee pads, and I guess Phil was in the vert.
That was a good contest. At that time, everyone that's like a top dude was in that contest. No one knew it.
I don't got time for this shit. Yeah.
First skateboard, Phil Shao.
Yeah, it was orange. And it had the little plastic mold grip tape, yeah. And it had a sun sticker on it and red clear wheels, and I got it at Toys R Us, yeah. It was very good, yeah. Yeah.
Redwood City Crib is the first place I really remember riding with Phil and seeing him do some things that like kind of, oh shit, you know, this guy.
God bless are cool.
Well, for a little while there was Joe's. Do you have any footage of him at that tiny spine? Yeah, we got to dig some of that up too, because he was a wizard. Yeah, that ramp was fun.
Dave knew him maybe better than anyone. I think Dave's a lot of the reason why Phil became such a technical skater.
It started at Stanford. Stanford was like the core. Like when I was a little kid, you go to Stanford, that's where you met everyone. I met all the San Jose dudes at Stanford. I met all the Redwood City dudes at Stanford. And I was just this little kid who'd come in and just skate all around. And then you started to know certain people, you know, like you'd hear names, you know, like Johnny Ferrer or like Paul Zwanek. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, those dudes are there and it's like, oh shit.
It was like a mini city. You'd skate a ledge and then you'd skate a manual and then you'd skate a hubba, and like it was so much stuff there.
I couldn't believe what he was doing on the big stuff at Stanford once he kind of really grew into it, you know? It was crazy.
Phil was just down to skate. Like I was down to skate.
Dave was like super talented young kid, like so hungry for tricks. And I think Phil gravitated towards that hunger a little bit.
I had to make it a doubles run for me and the blade.
They just kind of fed off each other.
He just started skating street a ton. Like his hair came off, he's like riding smaller wheels. Like and he's so fucking naturally talented and good. Like so naturally talented and good. It didn't even matter. Like just instant transformation.
That crazy tight transition thing that was behind the garbage can.
Trash banks?
He did that pivot on?
Yeah, trash banks.
Yeah. The first time we went there, he couldn't do shit. So he went back and he fucking got that.
That made no sense to me. He front pivoted trash banks, like that's a wrap.
My like filming skills at that point were pretty low quality. Like I had a camera and I was there just like riding around pointing and stuff. And I got better working with Phil, and actually it was here at Mitchell, there was like one day where I was like, oh, I know how to do it now. And like, there's footage from that day where I was like, okay, I got it. And it was just from, like, a lot of it was from spending time with him. But it was always amazing to like go like from here, and you know, he'd be doing some like tech ledge trick, and we'd go down the street to Greer, and he'd, you know, just do some transfer that nobody else could do, and then go down the street to your ramp, and he's doing like chest high frontside flips, and just like, he can do anything.
I don't know how they shoot covers now, but it was very rare, if not it ever happened, that I went out and said, I'm gonna shoot a cover. It was, I'd shoot photos and I'd look at it and you'd know right away. It was like, oh, that's a cover. If I remember right, he's got a red board, and that fence in the background, I always mention that because when the sun was right, it was like golden, yellow, orange, like wooden fence. It was the epitome of like a mini ramp session. So that was easy, that was a no-brainer. Maybe I regret The slap script, it wasn't the best of them. It could have been done a little better, but we didn't know what we were doing. Like, we were a bunch of idiots. We didn't know anything.
But as soon as like we were thick, like that was right when he got on thick.
Think, represent. See, Keith? Everybody's happy now.
Thank you.
Honestly, like go and meet up with Greg. I remember like the first time doing that.
You guys go get your truck registered.
I think at the time for me it was always about picking skateboarders that could skate everything.
Around that time, it was me, Paul, Joel Price, Pales.
We had just kind of all got on Think together, similar time, and we were just like comparing clips, and I was just watching all Phil's. Once I saw the footage and skated with him, I was like, damn, this guy rips.
Later on, Jesse Paez, Wade Spire.
You know, we kind of were on the same team for a good 6 years, maybe longer. And, you know, we'd always travel the world, go all over the place.
At least from my perspective, the whole Think thing was like a family of misfits. It was super fun because everybody vibed.
I'm dumb.
It may be true. It also, I think they have toys that don't allow them to use their imagination.
Yeah, then eventually it was time to turn pro.
When Phil turned pro at Back to the City, it was like we all turned pro. With him after it ended, and Hosoi came up to him and was like, hey, you've got rad style. Phil's face just was like, it just lit up. To get a compliment on your style from Hosoi.
I think he had some ideas at first for graphics. Obviously we had some of the most profound artists, dude, like Mike Giant, like Mike Lesage.
Hey look, this is Giant. He draws all my graphics.
I just remember Phil being really cool. He was silly, and he was really smart. Smart enough to understand that a good graphic would equal good board sales, which would equal a good check for him.
Which one should we do?
It's up to you, man.
But I don't think he cared so much. I think we would have funny kind of arguments back and forth about it, because he would bring in an idea, and I was like, I can make this happen for a skateboard, but this isn't gonna sell. Like, kids aren't gonna get this. This is just some weird thing, you know? But he would just be like, no, I'm just really inspired by this. I really wanna put it on a board. And I'd be like, okay, Phil.
Yeah, so it's got more in it.
It was one of those things where the writers would come in and they'd have an idea for a graphic that they wanted. And then I started to create graphics that I thought might appeal to the customer base, and then they could just add their name to it. So I started putting those up on the wall. Some people really gravitated towards those and were like, oh no, just put my name on that one. That one's really cool. Not Phil. Phil always had an idea.
Yeah, okay. Rock and roll. We'll do this one.
I mean, you always see potential in guys, that's why you sponsor them. But it was him. He just had it. It's one of those guys. You know, it's like my brother, Danny Way, or you know, even Drehobel.
If I ever get a model, I just want to have black and white.
You get the sense from him like he was operating at a higher level than the rest of us. He had like good taste in tricks and trick selection, and could skate anything. He was good at flip tricks, flat ground. He'd kill a vert ramp or a pole.
Really, you can't talk about Phil without mentioning Drehobel and Wade. Insane to watch those three together. And no one's gonna get that again. Not like that.
Phil was just effortless. He just always flowed his tricks from one to the other. It's like if we were just trying a trick, each of us would get closer and closer to making it, you know, so we'd always, you know, come on, this is it, let's do it. And then one of us would make it first, and now the other guy had to make it. I remember one time, because I'd skate with Phil all the time, he's like, yeah, you gotta go check out my part that I've been working on. And I saw it, and I was like, I could not even believe that he was doing all those tricks, because I've never even seen him do that.
He's doing like a nose stall tail grab in a pool. I don't know, but I remember that came out and I was like, oh shit. He has like this pool photo, but then he's like doing nollie backside flips. mind-blowing. It was like, for me, when I was younger, it was just like watching him skate career.
It's been years. And the only reason why I'm back here is for Phil. All my buddies used to skate this place like a clown-ass launch ramp, right? Phil actually used to like it. Yahtzee wall, Phil, laid back hairstyle before he went big. Next was a venture ad, heel flip. It's a nice heel flip too. When you think of the best shit that you could possibly do in this bowl, there's only really two things. Something over the volcanoes, and after that's clearing these fucking titties. And only one person's done it in 30 fucking years. It's the fucking gnarliest shit ever. Okay, he's a vert skater. It's that well-rounded shit that makes you take that training skill and bring it to the streets and then well-round it into ATV. And that's Bill, A-T-fucking-B, to the T.
The term is grossly overused at this point, but you know, he was an ATV, which at the time, because skateboarding, street skating was getting so technical, we had a whole crop of guys that like could barely ride a mini ramp, let alone like anything beyond that. And Phil, you know, was ripping Greer Park, and he had no problem when we brought him to the hills, and he had no problem on the vert ramp.
There was nothing really for us to skate, so when you were able to skate something, if it was there, a fucking contest or, you know, a vert ramp somewhere, a YMCA, you skated the shit out of it and you were stoked. It's like vert is a good fucking start, because if you fucking conquer that, everything else is just fucking kind of piddly, right? And your little curb cut is fucking like, you got that.
And then when you watch Phil's parts, it's wherever he's at, he's just casually ripping, you know, so there was no specific kind of way of skating. And people ask me that to this day, that people that don't skate, they're like, so what kind of skating do you do? I say, we skate it all. We skate everything. And then they're confused by that because they're like, what is everything? And everything is fucking pools, street, ramp, shitty ramps, good ramps. Probably not mega ramps. You know, that's why Jake didn't like certain people in the van, because you're just here wasting space because you don't, I only skate 20 stair handrails. Well, guess what? We're only hitting one of those in this trip, so why are you here for 12 days? It's like, I don't eat onions or some shit, or it's just like a picky way of looking at it where it's like, you just be stoked to skate and skate everything.
I remember in Canada at this contest, I saw him ripping on the ramp and I didn't know who he was yet. And I said, man, I told Jake, I go, who's that guy? He's super good. And he goes, that's the guy that was ripping in the street. So he could skate both. He could rip the street and the vert.
Phil's top 3. Yeah, I would say so, 100%.
Even like the China Bank stuff seemed kind of like unbelievable, but it made sense. But I was still like, fuck, dude, I gotta see this.
So the damage video, Phil, Paul Zuanich, and myself were editing that video together. And this was before digital. It was all just tape to tape. It was in the middle of editing and we all decided to go skate China Banks one day, and all this shit went down. Like as soon as we got there, Tim McKinney started trying to carve the big bench and ended up pulling it. And he was only the second person to ever do that after Julian did it. Recently, an anti-hero video had come out, and Cardiel 50-50 the top, which no one had ever touched the top. So that kind of opened that up for us.
I just remember Phil like taking it from one thing like the 50-50, okay, got that. And then like Phil would do, he'd be like, dude, if I could 50 it, I could just Smith grind it.
Just getting up on the top and Smith grinding up on the top, that's incredible.
He like grinded it to a fucking halt and then hopped in.
He kind of did that thing where he'd think about, if I could just Smith grind and pop in, oh, I could tail slide it.
He tail slides it, and then with just a couple tries, tail slides to fakie that thing.
it shows you how talented he really is.
You can't just ride down that bank straight. Your tail will just dig into the bricks and you'll just rip your tail off. So he had to like tail side it and come in at perfectly the right angle to pull that.
Front tail fakie. How the hell are you getting out of that?
What? Big gulps and cookies.
Dan and Phil were like, I would skate with them, but I also just wanted to watch. America Yellow video. Him and Jehobo skate back to back. And Jehobo like board sides behind the bus bench and shit. I loved that.
Whoa, tech.
Photo-wise, it's doubles of him and Dan. And they're at the Yuba City skate park.
So much shit that was done back in that era. It was either, you would either shoot a photo of it or you would film it. Tons of shit got done back then and it didn't get filmed.
It sucked. I turned pro in '96. I was plagued with injuries that whole year, but that was also the year of Jim's Ramp Jam contest. He fucking destroyed that contest.
The level of energy in there was something that I've never witnessed in skateboarding.
He was going so high, it's not flagrant.
He was a master. He was just demolishing the ramp, you know, like doing all kinds of stuff everywhere.
And even like when it was you know, like the, what do they call it?
The Texas Death Match.
Talk about what you don't do if you want to keep doing it as a Texas Death Match.
It seemed like he cut through it like with a knife, kind of just sliced right through.
People were scared to take runs. People were fucking going down. He was like slaloming people and like there was just so many close calls, but he like navigated it so crazy.
This is like the top of the food chain of like gnarly.
And you know, Jake wanted carnage and everyone wanted carnage.
Cardale fucking winging backflips and shit.
I'm just concentrating on fucking skating, trying to make a trick, you know, or one certain thing. And it seemed like Phil had a broader spectrum of things, like he was connecting dots.
That ramp jam at Jim's just like opened up the floodgates for like, who is the gnarliest of the gnarly here?
I thought Phil was gonna win that one.
So when did Phil get second?
Second place.
That was one of the best days of my life. It was so fun. Yeah, it was one of the rad contests, one of the best.
You can watch the video, it's available on YouTube.
Phil was really, really good at contests when he wanted to be. You know, I remember like Tampa, where we're just like,
He goes up and Smith grinds that bitch and then puts 4 wheels down and goes down the bank to wall. Hands behind the back, roll away. And it looked so casual.
But that wasn't his like main thing. Like he wasn't one of those dudes who was like out training to win the contest. He was just really good.
I went to that Santa Rosa contest and killed that place too.
Yeah, it was a regular contest, and after that, I'm pretty sure everyone put in money for the contest who could do the baddest trick over the pyramid.
We're waiting for the backside 180.
Everyone was like, who can backside 180? Jehobo tried it, and Wade, San was trying to backside 180, grab it. I literally forgot that I was almost backside 180 in it. I think Mike Carroll chucked a few and did like an airwalk. But I remember not being able to get speed for it, and I was running and push.
Because that thing was pretty big, and just getting speed because you had to go around that corner too. Like, how the fuck did he get the speed?
He would come into that bowl at Santa Rosa, hella fast, carve, and then boom, hit the backside 180.
And just his pump is fucking perfection. That's why he reminds me of Grant. Grant's similar that way, where you get speed out of nowhere.
Speed from nowhere. Maybe that's sometimes an illusion.
He had the ability to pump it, and then he had that street ability to back 180 over something.
He backs out 180 that shit. Fucking insane.
To see that was like, you know, that's the next level.
Just a cool moment, you know, everybody's there, and just watching your friend be like so stoked.
So clean, dude.
It wasn't like it was expected of him, but it was like, of course it's Phil. He's gonna do something like totally amazing.
It was nuts, dude. Undeniable Phil.
I'm like the gnarler.
You know, one thing is Jake loves skaters who fucking not only rip, but who are skaters to the core, right? And so he can respect those people. And skating with him, he's probably just getting his mind fucking blown all the time.
You know that picture of him ollieing off that bank in Henderson? People don't realize that he ollied up to it.
How'd he get up that thing? It's like, honestly, shoulder height.
It was the same time when Huff got the cover at the ditch. So Huff kept trying to ollie up it. Huff tried twice and couldn't ollie up it, and Phil, first try, ollied up it. And I think kind of like spooked for a second, ollied it, and he did it a couple times and then just like clacked it in.
I remember seeing that photo, and that was one where I was just like, holy shit, dude, this is the fucking baddest photo.
I mean, probably my favorite photo of Phil, more than that ollie, is the lean grab at the arc ramp, because he's not overdoing it. I mean, I guess that's the best way to describe him too. He never tried to overdo it. It was pinpoint, perfect style. Not too much, not too little. So few people can do that.
The main photo, I guess, is probably just for Miley.
He was just on one that day. He was just feeling it, and he must have just hucked himself up there, and it was probably baby's butt smooth, because that's everything Phil did.
That just like fucked everything up. You know, I was a local at Miley. I had the cover of the mag in '84 doing a fast plant, and it had no bars. And then when they put the bars up, it was like unimaginable, because the space between the top bar and the bank is literally inches. So you have to ollie completely vertical. I mean, the Miley one you can't unsee. I remember going there after and like feeling the rail against my chest.
That bank's so tight, and how do you ollie up that high?
I couldn't get like 3 feet off there, and that thing looks like it's like 4 feet, and he got up there and grinded. Just incredible.
Well, just that hip in general. When your front wheels hit, as soon as the back wheels hit, you gotta take off. So it's like a ga-ga. So to get onto the bar up top is, whoa.
I'm pretty sure it was the first real trick that was done up on the top, and especially over the hip too, like the combination of all that.
Is he went like the hard way and then landed on the bar. It was insane.
Over the hip, top ropes again. When I heard about it, like, I didn't understand how, like, that was possible. You know, it didn't make sense to me.
That was 96. We went there together. So we got there, we were just skating normal. And then Phil just started kind of like throwing it up there. I had no idea he had that in mind, to grind the top over the fucking hip, which is ridiculous.
Oh my.
I was right by Satva, and Dan just rolled right up to the rail and like was watching, like just totally clueless.
First time he did it, I was skating by and he did it, and I got in front of the camera as he was up in the grind and just completely cut him off. And it fucked the trick up. My friend does this groundbreaking trick and I'm standing in front of the camera like an asshole, and he turned around and fucking did it again right away.
He did have to do it again. It got dark and he did it so sick.
I think I probably was like, let all bullshit go. Like, you cannot categorize this dude. He is next level beyond.
Phil was the best. People think cardio was the best. Ask John. He'll tell you Phil was the best.
You know, watching him kind of like outdo things that maybe I had done before, it just really cemented the fact that he was that much more talented of a skater, and it just made me respect him more.
That's it right there. When this came out, it fucking shook the skate world, I tell you that. Top 5, easily. Because of my love for the spot, because of the city, because Phil, and the trick itself was just, again, just at that time, it was groundbreaking.
Yeah, just incredible. And the thing about it with Phil is like, he would rip so hard, but he just like had this ability to not seem arrogant, or he just seemed humble.
There's a sense of humility in there, but then also the fact that Phil was somebody who was hyper intelligent. I mean, the guy's going to Berkeley, dude.
Mozart.
That was the first time I ever saw that, oh, somebody could come from nothing, make something of themselves, become one of the best skaters, and then also, at the same time, be going to like super difficult school.
He was going to Berkeley while he was at like the peak of his career.
He had a mini ramp in his yard in Berkeley, and I remember like helping him move some plywood for that.
I was at some of those sessions at Berkeley campus, and we have, you know, footage of that.
He was like a really good student.
It was mind-blowing, because I would bring up things, you know, literature-wise, and he would know about it. I'd be like, wow.
Really wanted to go to college. That was one of his main goals in life, is just to, he might not do what he's planning on doing, but he still wanted to graduate college.
There was another thing, because I was there for the best thing he ever did at Fort Miley, and that was the blunt slide, tail slide over the top.
So that day, we were just out skating all day long, and we went to Miley. He started kind of tinkering with trying the tail slide, and it wasn't too long after he'd done the 5-0, and I think he just had it in his head, like, oh, I could probably do that. And in the footage, you can hear me say, oh no.
Oh no.
As I'm seeing the battery go out. And I told him, and he was just like, all right. And he just kept trying it. And then he just did it, like, perfectly.
Ollied over to blunt slide, he came in.
And we were the only people who saw it.
Not a lot of people at his level, I don't think, would have done that just to do it. And that was just like, Phil's the best.
It was weird because I was drifting apart from Jake at that point. You know, I had built my own ramp, and I needed to kind of separate from him. You worked for him, he's intense. So Phil started to, in my eyes, do some of the heavy lifting, where I was like, cool, that's your dude now. I know you still love me because you call me all the time, but this is kind of your new dude. And there was people that really wanted Jake to like them desperately. I don't label Phil as that person. I think Jake was more concerned if Phil liked him, which is rare that Jake sweats somebody, right?
This dude was like magical, the way he pushed, the way he fucking rode. He never overdid it. He wasn't sketchy. He was just like Hosoi and the Gons in one fucking dude.
What do you think of Jake comparing Phil to half Gons, half Hosoi in one dude?
I've never heard that. That's funny. Jake, you know, he's from the 70s, so he likes skateboarding to have like that 70s type of fluidity, and I think Phil had that in him, you know, he just kind of flowed. I mean, I think Jake likes that kind of skating, and Phil, that's what he was all about.
This is hard for me to fucking explain, because back in the day, we used to go on these fucking trips. We called them hell rides because we slept everywhere. We used toothbrushes. We didn't have GPS. We didn't have anything. And we were lucky enough one year to have this guy, Phil Shao.
It seems like Felper kind of had an eye of kind of what worked. And it was cool to see that Phil wanted to go with us and just go on that hell ride or whatever. Like, he was down and he fucking ripped every single spot to shreds. Leveled every place, last one skating.
And I remember they got back from that trip and Phelps told me, like, wait until you see this shit that he did. Like, I know he ollies out of one bowl into another bowl and it just looks so fucking huge and insane.
We're in Spain. We call it the killer capsule, where that's the picture on the bar.
There's a rail that's really close to the coping. I just remember getting up to it and just feeling like I couldn't snap back in because you would go to the flat, and like Phil, once again, just boomed. He snapped up to a pivot and fucking snapped it back in so lightweight and easy. It seemed like he knew what it took to make it happen. Like, it wasn't gonna be a 50-50. It had to be a pivot, had to be light and delicate, and he knew by his skateboard mathematics that that's what needed to happen.
It was our last night in Madrid. 23 days, this was a fucking bender. Cardiel was trying to 50-50 this thing. It's this long marble thing at Plaza de Colón. It's like this Madrid Embarcadero.
There was like this kind of kink ledge there, and we were trying to grind it, and I was like, I think I could grind the whole thing. Luke, we set it all up. We're like, let's try to do it.
John was getting smeared on this fucking thing.
I kept trying it.
Being the gentleman that he was, he walked up to John, he's like, hey, can I try it too? John looked at him and said straight up, somebody better make this fucking thing.
Fucking do it, bro. Like, you got this, you know. We sit around, we're watching Phil. He fucking does it. Like, I think it was third try or some shit like that. Just breezed through the whole thing. I was like, I sat down. Oh, shit.
Second try, he fucking just muscled it to the street. Right then, the van pulled up. Aeropuerto, out of Madrid. Hell ride's over.
Seeing that photo, it brings back that whole vibe of like, that's Phil.
And again, being probably one of the best skaters at the time, hands down, you know, just definitely garnered Jake's respect. And then him wanting to bring him into the mag, right?
He hurt himself, started working here at the mag. He saw how things were going down, and he just fucking blossomed here.
He was everything Jake liked, and he was smarter than Jake. And that's why Jake liked him, because if you think about it, and I know people are gonna think this is crazy, is that Jake was smarter than most people. He had a photographic memory, which is nuts. And I think he looked at Phil as like, you're an insane skater, you like skating what I do, you think about skating like I do, and you're smarter than everybody, so you're the obvious person to take over.
I think growing up in a house without a father figure probably had a huge impact on the way Phil related to men. Because, you know, being as a young guy, having to be the father figure for his little brothers.
Couch. This is my brothers. This is Matt right here.
And we fight all the time.
No, and this is Steve right here.
Yeah, yes, do it.
I think that had a huge impact. So there's this responsibility that was put on him at a young age to be able to have the responsibility to be like, okay, I can do this job. It must have been interesting for Jake though, because it's like, here, you're actually grooming somebody to take your spot. Like, where psychologically does Jake go for that one?
I don't know if Jake thought that he was gonna leave. I don't think that was ever part of Jake's thinking, but it was like, I can be here and bring Phil in and he can take over.
I never seen any bunk energy with them two, ever. It was always just salute.
Basically, the last probably year and a half of his life, he was marred by injuries. I guess he was skating at Jake's ramp in Hunters Point. And I guess he was trying to ollie from the ramp to frontside grind across the extension and drop down into that flat bank, and looped out and fell all the way from the 12-foot extension to the floor and broke his foot. Once he got better and healed from that, he had to start getting 2 different size shoes because his foot was a half size bigger on that foot. He got better, and then immediately he started fucking completely ripping again. It was like he had progressed while he was injured.
If it wasn't for Diego, bringing some wind back into those sails of Think. It would have just been.
So it was the first time I went to the States by myself. Fausto was trying to find me a spot, and then they were like, yeah, you're gonna be staying with Phil Shaw and Paul Swanek. So I stayed with him for like 3 months. He was working at Thrasher, and I would go skate during the day when he was working. Jake and him were kind of like the ones teaching me English. I don't know, they helped me out a lot.
I knew that those dudes were going on that trip up the Oregon coast.
I hurt my ankle the day before, so I backed out.
Friday evening after work, me and Phil and Diego left from High Speed to Potrero Hill and just cruised around. We went to Greg Carroll's apartment, kind of said our goodbyes, have a good trip.
So then they come to my house. I remember feeling like this heaviness. I was like, what the fuck, man? And I was like, I don't want this dude to leave my house and not know that I care about him. They were leaving in the morning and he knocked on my bedroom door and he was, hey dude, we're leaving. I was like, all right, bro, I love you, man. He's like, love you. And they left.
Yeah, that trip came out of nowhere. I didn't even know where we were going, honestly. It was Luke, Jake, Coco, Phil, and that was Phil's first trip after the injuries. Phil was just so happy to be back on the board. It looked like he was never hurt. We just went to this dude's house, set up our sleeping bags, and we're just hanging out there. That's when he left and never came back.
My phone rings at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and I pick it up and it's the sheriff department up there.
We were in Palo Alto, we were just getting on the freeway and I get the phone call.
They had found my phone number in his wallet, so I had to make the phone calls.
I went to get coffee in the morning. Luke came up to me, he was gray as a skull, and he's like, Phil's dead.
After skating that day, he went to a house party by himself and met this girl at the party, and she drove off the side of the road.
I don't think any of us thought that Phil would be the one to die young.
It still shocks me. I can't believe that Phil ended up in a situation like that. He's not the guy.
What the girl said was that she tried to make a U-turn and she was drunk and the side of the car went off the edge and the car flipped, hit a tree, and he snapped his neck and they said it died instantly.
Ambulance showed up, didn't know he was in the car, rescued her out of the car, took her to the hospital, and then when the tow truck came in to take the car out, that's when they found Phil.
Death isn't fair, we all die alone, but like the way he died, nobody deserves that.
Our community was heavily, hammered by it.
My heart broke. It still broke.
And Jake was crying.
I miss him.
God damn, I miss him.
People don't know what that impact had on people like me. I was done. As soon as Phil died, my heart and soul was kind of done with skateboarding.
And I still think about him so much, so much.
The dude that's graduating college, that has a brain in his head, that rips at everything that everybody fucking likes to sit in the van with.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it because I was, my best friend at the time.
And I remember hearing Greg even saying that maybe Think shouldn't have continued after Phil because he was the foundation of Think, at least for so many of us.
Him dying was like the wind just got taken out of the sails of Think. He was never the same.
It sucks, his life ended up becoming a cautionary tale to never get in a car with a drunk driver.
I just can't understand it. It's still one of the most mystifying things in my fucking life. I can't believe that he's gone.
I've been at this job for like 2 weeks that he basically got from me. and I have to write his obituary.
I had made a skateboard specifically for him, painted the whole thing black, and went up there in the woods and buried it. You could see like where the trees were broken from where the car drove off the road.
I get choked up just thinking about Phil aside, just such a talented human that did no one any harm, that was at the top of their game, leaving the earth.
That's why you're doing a documentary 20-something years later on a guy that's been dead for 27 years. Is because he mattered to a bunch of people.
I got his name tattooed on my arm. It's a panther because the panther shows the tenacity that he had.
You see that tattoo, you're like, damn. And you think about Jake and that crew and the shit that they've seen and done. And now Jake's in your little realm and you're on a mission. Maybe translates a little bit to like, maybe we can be as sick as they were.
And you can even see it in the dedication video. Paul's filming him. It's the white blown out. He's like, oh, are we in heaven?
Face looks weird.
It's because we're in heaven.
Ah.
Yeah, bro. I hope you're in heaven.
Just go.
Phil Show!
Yeah, Phil.
And take the good ones because they make the other ones like us realize how much our lives suck. Hey, shut up out there.
On break, I come down here and in the spirit of Phil, and I do a nose one slide for Phil. As far as I'm concerned, he was right behind me doing it because that's how we used to have it back to back.
Rise sound is terrible. Apologize.
The anti-hero ad that Julian ran, the straight up best skater I knew.
No matter what he did, I mean, if it was balancing like a Slurpee cup on his finger, like he could do it and do it good and do it long. Like anything that he did, he just had a natural talent for.
Look it. Oh shit. Oh, you're gonna, dude, you're gonna, do you know what's there? No. You're gonna feel fucked when you see it, bro. Oh, I'm gonna cry, dude. Guess who's right there? Phil? Get the fuck out of here, bro. We're not the only ones, bro. That's what I'm saying. 30 years later, who the fuck's gonna draw that, bro? Who took their time 30 years later to fucking do that? Have you seen him? Have you seen him? As far as I'm concerned, that's why we came back. That is the only reason why I came back today, was to see that as I'm talking about out the gates and into the streets. That's stupid. I'm done. I'm fucking done.
So remember to love your friends and try to, enjoy life while you can, because you never know, it can go just like that.
Unbelievable. Unfucking believable.